Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of VideoAsk Voyagers. I'm Grace from the community team and I'm very happy to be back presenting this next episode. So this time round we caught up with John Ostler, who is the CEO of Unicorn Road. Now John sent us a message via the community a couple of months back to tell us all about a brand new mental health startup that they had been working with. And John very kindly introduced us to Ariana Gibson, who is CEO and founder of Stigma App, the mental health startup they were working on. And we were able to have a really honest and interesting conversation with them about how they have built out this new platform and how they've been using VideoAsk within it. So what did we talk about? The inspiration behind the project. Ariana speaks very openly about how she came to the decision to set this up. How they decided to start using VideoAsk within the app, using the API documentation to be able to customize VideoAsk as much as they needed to, and also how they are using custom variables to their advantage. And John does a great screen share a little bit later on about that, so stay tuned for that one. And then we also chatted about the various inclusive features that VideoAsk has to offer and the user experience too. So without further ado, we're going to get cracking and we're going to hear from Ariana and John telling us a little bit about who they are, what they do, and how they came to be working on this project.
I was a documentary filmmaker. I had worked for corporate companies and for startups of different sizes, working on brand and creative direction and kind of storytelling and figuring out how to tell stories about different companies. I released a short film that was about my husband, who is an orphan and a child sexual abuse survivor, who opened up about how abuse in his childhood led to complex PTSD. And it was a story that I wanted to tell because I've always been an advocate in the mental health space. My father is schizophrenic, so mental illness has just always played a part in the world that I live in. And when we released that, I started getting messages from strangers online, as did my husband. And for him, it was a lot of people saying, I can't believe you talked about it. People never talk about it, about being a CSA survivor. And they were opening up and sharing kind of Me Too stories. This same thing happened to me. Some of them were saying, I haven't told anyone until now. And these messages were happening asynchronously over LinkedIn or Instagram, or sort of, some asked if they could do a phone call and he said yes. So he had this experience that I watched him kind of heal in some way. And no one's ever fully healed from any kind of, severe trauma, but there are times where you can feel lighter about it. And the way I've described it since is that I think he told his story enough times that it lost a lot of its power to elicit shame. And so in that moment, I didn't think I was going to be a tech founder. I thought like maybe I can get someone to finance my docuseries, but I saw what was happening with him and realized that it was too important to not try and figure out a way to facilitate that type of reciprocal social connection where neither party is getting anything out of it other than seeing living proof that they're not alone and sort of feeling hopeful. So it was a big order, and I'll give John a lot of credit, because John Ostler, that is, because I didn't know exactly what it should be at first. So he was really patient as we navigated me thinking through like, what could this look like? I knew who John was because my older sister had founded a company and he actually built their mobile app. And she said, he's launched this company that helps people in your exact position, people who are maybe first-time founders or just very early stage and don't exactly know, don't have the technical skills to build the MVP themselves, but want to try and do it as quickly and as inexpensively as possible. And I talked to John and probably 3 other different types of opportunities where I could have gone like, build the whole thing, hire a local company, hire an offshore company, just kind of every version that I had heard of how do you get a product to market. And knew from our first call it was going to be him, but I did my due diligence and talked to other people. And then he helped me workshop what some solutions could be. And we ultimately landed on VideoAsk, but he can probably speak more articulately to how he navigated figuring out what was the right tool to bring this product as an MVP version to market.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. So in Chicago, I've got a couple of companies. One that really specializes in enterprise work that it's been around about 14 years. And we've done the soup to nuts build outs of custom coded, totally native apps, total web apps. And we've built video-based social networks. And I've had the experience of both being a part of those communities that start from 0 to 1 million to creating some really high-end like video editing tools, and just seeing the kind of the timeline that comes with that, and the risk that comes with that, and the stakes and everything. And so I think when pivoting into working and starting Unicorn Road, it was really about how do we very quickly stand on the shoulders of all these companies, including Typeform, VideoAsk, and really leverage their technology to prove out what we want to build. And so, it's immediately for us, I think for everyone we work with, and especially with the Stigma app, it's about how can we put Ariana and team in a position to be able to very quickly test out new workflows, test out new functionality, and get to the point where we know what our secret sauce is. Because I think most startups, they don't totally know what's going to be the hit feature or the killer app that's going to drive user growth. So I know in many previous engagements, we've used Typeform's form tools to create really great lead gen forms and surveys and all types of different applications. And I got keyed into VideoAsk because one of the we were doing a competitive analysis for a large enterprise video-based app, and VideoAsk came up very early as a potential solution to do reaction videos to content. And we didn't end up doing it because we needed a little something more bespoke. But it was one of those things where, like, I think everyone on our team was like, this is really cool. We know Typeform, like we know the quality's good. So we just need to find the best way to use it. And so, yeah, it became obvious as we talk more about what this website or web app or mobile app needs to do. It became very obvious that VideoAsk is going to be like the key piece of the puzzle to like not have to build a video capture, annotation, text machine. Like, wow, let's like not build all that right now and focus on getting it implemented and testing it.
So it's just fantastic to hear that not only did this documentary that Ariana created inspired this whole project, the kind of the response that they were getting from the documentary, but also just brilliant that she was able to find John, and John already had worked with Typeform and was almost looking for an opportunity to use VideoAsk. It sounds like VideoAsk ticked the boxes for them. So we're going to dive back into the conversation now and hear a little bit more about how they were playing around with the API to be able to make sure that VideoAsk really was the right product to be doing what they needed to do with this video messaging option.
With the Stigma app in particular, there are certain things that have to be in place in terms of how what information we're capturing about the user so that we can effectively filter the right kinds of content to them and things. And so that was, it's kind of like, okay, now there's like, there's a video tool that we can use. Is it going to be, worthy of testing, right? Like, it's one thing to be able to just offer this as a functional piece, but can we do it? So we really had to dig into everything in the VideoAsk portfolio or in the API documentation or front-end documentation to see if this is going to work for us. Because it's one of those things where I think most teams use VideoAsk totally as an add-on, right? It lives in the corner of a page to help explain things, or it helps with the onboarding, versus it being an integrated piece to a web app, which I think is much more rare, unless it's just purely based on like product feedback or something like this, where you're qualifying frequently asked questions or something like this. So that was really the key differentiator. Can it be customized? Can we customize the contact information so that we can use it in other ways with our member database?
From the beginning, when you showed me like, and here you go, you can just do this right now, just test it out. Nothing was live. I thought, this is wild that it's so smooth and easy and really clear. So then he started, I think, kind of like digging into like the capabilities that it had, and I'll let him speak to that piece. But I was more focused on what is this experience going to be like for people? Because we have to remember that this is an experience that for many, they're coming because they're asking for a message of hope. And so the bravery required to even ask for help in the first place is, really admirable. But you have to be incredibly thoughtful about how sensitive you are and how much you share and what you don't share, and even the engagement between people. So I do work in Chicago for the Young Center for Immigrant Children's Rights, and had undergone a training to understand sort of how we can support these children. And I tell this as an aside, but it's important in sort of crafting what this experience was, I learned that after working with these children who were being held in detention for months and months, or even a year and a half as sort of the maximum, at a certain point, you never get to speak to them again. And you can't give contact info, and it's just done. And I remember thinking, well, I can't do this because I'm going to want to know how these kids are doing and stay in touch. And what I learned in the training was, in that specific case with this population, you may be the only example those children have ever had or will ever have of a healthy boundary. And if you demonstrate to them that there are people who will come into their life to do kind things and to be supportive in appropriate and healthy boundary ways, and then exit their life and never ask for a thing in return, it sort of like builds their faith in humanity. It makes them understand that that is what a healthy interaction looks like. And so I used a lot of that in applying how the interactions could go in Stigma App, because what I didn't want was for people to use our app as a replacement for treatment or therapy. We go out of our way to say we are not licensed mental health professionals. The messages of hope you get are not considered therapy and not from licensed professionals. It's really meant to be a way where you can tap into a community of kindness and get some hope on demand. And there are different reasons why someone might want to do that. And we can get into use cases later if we want to, just sort of in general statements. But what I wanted to make sure of was the tool that we had would make it possible for someone to say, I need a little support. They would get the option to say, I want to ask for that support from either the entire member base of Stigma App, or only the people who share my lived experience. So we have certain categories now in the app where people will say, I only want, we've only ever had asks in certain categories where people say first degree connection, personal experience with this only, and then no one else gets to see it. The large majority of our population says, I'll take a message of hope from anyone. But figuring out how we were going to create pathways to connect the right people to make sure that we weren't serving a video that was private about an experience that someone wanted to share only with others who had been through that to the entire population base, and that we limited the interactions to an ask for hope, an offer of hope, and a thank you. So we get that feedback loop for the person who has done this thing out of the goodness of their spirit and soul, to say, I just want to spend 3 minutes or less of my day today giving someone a message of kindness because I see that they're struggling, but not turn it into the equivalent of sort of like an AA sponsor, where it is a more high responsibility position where it's ongoing, where you have to be available at all times, because we want people to use this as a supplement to their daily mental health routines and not as a replacement for other types of treatment or therapy. So I had a sort of tall list of requirements for John, but all of them laddering back to people's privacy and to people feeling safe in the environment we're creating, because social media doesn't offer that for people. Public social media platforms don't offer that. And beyond the sort of business differentiator of what we could build, I care deeply about people feeling safe and feeling like they can come to a place, be vulnerable, and have that vulnerability shared with only the people they want it shared with.
And John, how did you go about putting that into practice then, and kind of keeping that, like, those limitations, those boundaries in place?
So we always start from a sketch, and we generally, anytime when we're in this like growing something from seeds standpoint, we try to get into build mode immediately. Like, we don't even really wait for design to start, because anytime like pushing around pixels is like a waste, right? It wastes the effort to do the proof of concept. So for the Stigma app, the first version was me basically, sign up for a free trial and creating a thing and say, here, reply to my message, and then showing in the dashboard like what it would look like, what would the data look like. So we basically had we used Webflow for this particular app, which there are a lot of growing sites using Webflow, but it could be WordPress or something custom. It could really be any kind of system. And so we spun that up, put an embed, a VideoAsk embed on a page, said, okay, this is what it would basically look like, and then here's the result, and here's how you'd manually update it. So it was very much like lo-fi prototype. It went from pencils on paper to like the minimum amount of steps to get a staging URL live with that kind of functionality and flow. And so we've from there always iterated at like, what is the core feature set? And I think the biggest difference to what we were going to build when we first talked and what we've built today is that we were originally thinking there'd be less automation, that there'd be more manual input, to where somebody would reach out through a form or something, and then we'd manually move that data into a CMS or into a member table and serve it that way. So that's really the only key difference. aside from what Ariana was saying. So the next step in terms of, I think, anyone using VideoAsk is like, how do we get more data out of it? In the same way you approach it with Typeform. And so it's nice that both systems have the idea of like a contacts list or, a basic CRM. And for us, that was the key kind of moment that we realized that because we have that capability, because we can take an embed that you guys supply for everyone who signs up for VideoAsk and add some custom parameters to it to be able to use that another way, that was like, okay, we can officially use this in any way we really want without getting too fussy, without doing a real native API integration or something like that. Like, because that's always been our key. It's like I think for any startup in particular, your key strength as a startup is that you are fast and you can outmaneuver everyone. You're light and fast. You're not this like 10,000 pound gorilla that like needs to go through a bunch of teams and a bunch of marketing teams and executive to get a thing done. This is like what we did this week might be different next week. And people are like, oh, whoa, like, okay, you guys are testing that now. Great. Like, let's see what happens. So I think we've been fairly consistent in that is that kind of having this combination of a few different tools put together in VideoAsk. I think we've iterated. We're on our like 4th iteration of how the site kind of functions within, a 4-month, 5-month time period, which is not something a lot of startups would try to do. And also kind of is a testament to if we'd done a custom code route, there'd be no way we would attempt to do that. It just wouldn't be healthy. So that, that's kind of the big picture. It's like basically taking sketches and trying to get super lo-fi prototypes done. And that gets us as close as we can to MVP. And then once we feel like the flows are right, then we'll add that layer of design, which takes a little bit more time.
So it was really about connecting the dots between the idea that they had sort of put together and built for this community of people that can offer hope to each other, and then being able to tap into what VideoAsk had to offer. And great to hear that they were able to automate so much of the process. So we were really keen to find out a little bit more about how they were doing that and how they were using variables specifically to be able to send the right message to the right person. So we're going to dive into the screen share here, and John's going to talk us through that setup.
So like one of the things to appreciate is that, when you're kind of getting started with VideoAsk, really the embed is the thing that you use the most. You basically create and build your ask in this interface, which is very simple, and you can put it in folders through this builder. And what's great about this from purely just like agility standpoint is that we can create a page that's on it, and then Ariana and team can adjust the flow and what questions are in there and what the video is without having to replace the embed. So it's like a really nice entry point in terms of using this nice little visual builder to make all the steps, and really it's like user friendly. And I think that's key is trying to keep especially non-technical folks feeling super empowered, right? That's like the key here is like all our strategists are often non-technical, so they really need the keys to the car still. Like you want them to drive if at all possible, which, a lot of custom code solutions, they just don't. They're just like, well, you got to talk to Sherry and we got to figure out like what it all looks like from a flow perspective. So that's really nice. But I think once you've created your ask, it comes time to share and embed it. And so this is where you can do a few things where some people, I think, use the system just to email out a VideoAsk, which is kind of nice. And there's a few different ways to engage, like from an embed or a widget. And I think this is the thing we've been seeing the most is VideoAsk being like a helpful like onboarding or fact tool, right? Where it kind of sits in the corner like this. But if you truly are embedding it on a page, you get this iframe that you can put in whatever system you're using, which is great and all, and you can customize it a bit. But really where the power comes in is when you work with variables. And so effectively, this is when we realized, oh, okay, this is going to actually work for our purposes. So variables effectively add these URL parameters to the end of the embed. And you can add any number. And some of them are predefined, like they're specific to the contact. There's an ability to put like ask for contact information as part of your flow, just as a baked in component of VideoAsk, which is nice. Like if you're, again, non-technical, like, yeah, I do want to know who they are and their phone number so I can reach out to them. Like it's nice to have that, as well as be able to, say, put in your phone number and us be able to validate that you're in the US or something like this. But the other thing you can do is add custom variables. And that's where we were able to effectively load up things like conditions, like condition 1, 2, and 3. These are the top 3, up to 3 conditions that you've had personal experience with. And a condition we, consider something like ADHD or symptoms of ADHD or, post-traumatic stress. That's when those things would get in there. And so, again, we were able to create those variables because then with JavaScript, we can pipe that information that the user put in there into the form. So when it's sent, we've got more metadata. And I think that's key is you've got your video asset, but then you've got this other contact or metadata associated with it that you can then reference in other ways. And that was important to us because anyone who's doing anything with a CMS or a member database is going to be able to need to cross-reference the VideoAsk material in some way. So variables are key. They're really not scary. I mean, I think variables kind of come off as scary when you first get into the VideoAsk documentation because you're like, wait, like, what is happening? Where's this going? How do I customize it? And you'll find in the forums people are like, what is going on? Like, what do I do with this information? How do I access it? And I think especially too for entrepreneurs or people that are starting out in their kind of early technical career, it's not as obvious how to like pull parameters or push parameters into URLs. So it's even a little scarier from that perspective. But yeah, it's pretty simple in terms of there's things out there. And so that's what we've used to power this is basically using the iframe and then adding the variables to it, which then goes into, I think, ultimately what's considered the let me see if I can get this here. So basically that tab right here, the contact form, is where those variables get piped in, as well as the ones that are built in to if you turn on collect content details, which comes as sort of the last step, or you can change it which step it comes in. So effectively, if these are hidden, then when this form is shown like this, we don't show the name and email, but because the URL parameter or the variable is in the URL, they'll get piped in there. And so we already know the user's first name. We try not to, we treat it to be true to anonymity. And email we know, but then like for instance, the phone number is something that we're interested in based on this specific this ask. So it might be we do something else with this, and so then we pipe everything through Zapier, which is super common now. I think it speaks to, again, if you're not going to build a lot of the stuff totally custom, or you're not going to do it initially anyway. I think most startups are, once they get to that point, it makes a lot of sense to build it custom because that's the secret sauce, right? But when you're pulling things off the shelf, I think it's a great way to then, you've got all this content, you can put it into Zapier, and then we can do a myriad of things with it, including send them custom text messages at a certain in a certain period, or do things like that. So this is what that screen looks like, and this is the thing you need to turn on if you want to use variables. And I think that's the other like little pro tip there if you want to start messing with it.
And just a quick build from like my side of things, because I don't know how to wire up any of that stuff, and John did it for me. But from the perspective of someone who's trying to create a user experience, the fact that VideoAsk had those variable options that John knew how to utilize and use in the right way. One of the debates we had early on was, do we ask for phone number? Because we know that especially with Gen Z, the population we're targeting, they much prefer communicating via text than via email. But we were also trying to be thoughtful of not creating too much friction, but we needed the ability to say, when someone asks for hope, how do we quickly engage with them in the way that they most prefer, to let them know that someone has offered them hope? And so I think with stuff like that the flexibility of the tool made it possible, but it also helped with some of the personalization that I knew I wanted, where people could use someone's name. So as John mentioned, we only ask for first name, and then we have some sort of subtext that says, but you're welcome to use a name that's not your own if it makes you feel more comfortable. And so we want people to have that option to say, because some people are going to ask for hope via text, so you don't know who they are, and no one on the public facing side would know any detail about them. We don't have profile pages. It's not a social media site. And so the ability to let people have that we've gotten so much feedback from people who say, we have video reactions recorded of people saying, when I heard my name, because what people want is to not feel alone. And so even though it's someone that you're probably never going to see in your everyday life, when someone, looks at a camera lens and speaks your name as if they're talking to you, you can't help but feel seen. And so even just small things like that just feel like, oh, it's just a feature to be able to have contact information or include that variable makes a difference, because when someone's watching and ask for hope, they are given the first name provided by that member and they're able to use it. And then we coach them and ask people who are offering hope, use their first name so that they really feel seen, and it feels a little more intimate than just sort of a public message that could be to anyone.
To tack onto that, I mean, one of the things that is also kind of fun about what you can do with VideoAsk, which is another kind of pro tip, is that you can pipe those variables into the builder itself. And so it's the case that we can say, offer Michelle hope here by using these kind of curly braces. And it's kind of nice, the idea that, once you have variables, you can use it in different ways. And I think even VideoAsk highlights that using a person's name, especially in the thank you messaging of the final step of a form, is like pretty major in terms of conversion and doing other things that are, maybe more common. So yeah, obviously we play that up in the personalization of the videos themselves, but also we try to find ways to incorporate the person's name throughout the site so it feels a little bit more personal, which was a little bit tricky. So that's another one of those little tips that you can use logic and variables to actually change what appears in the video.
Have you had feedback from people? How are people responding to the app, and also to using video and kind of their experiences with VideoAsk as the kind of respondent side of things?
Yeah, so I'll say, luckily for me as a person who needs to build a brand, it's great that they don't know it's VideoAsk, just in the sense that, we're trying to say we want to build this experience for you. But I think it is something that leveled up our brand perception instantaneously. It did for me instantly before it ever was a thing. When John's talking about wiring up one page to be able to do something, he said, oh, I can get this done really quickly. And I thought, okay. And I don't remember the exact time frame, but it was maybe the next day that he was like, here you go, or hours later, because it was that easy to turn on. Just here's what this experience would look like. And so I think that piece of it has had so much to do with people trusting us, because the quality of the thing that you're interacting with makes a difference in your perception of the thing. So the thing being this brand I'm trying to build with a team of great people to earn people's trust and provide them a safe space. Were it a clunky experience, or if you had to imagine a scenario where you're ready to ask for help, which is, again, one of the hardest things to do, and you go and engage with some form of technology, that you record your message and then it just goes away and you have to do it all over. It's not the same. It's not when you are being open and sharing vulnerably. I think most people don't want to do it more than once. From user testing, we don't hear a ton of people using, the replay option was a huge benefit as well. I don't know if I had it on my even want to have or nice to have list. It might have just been John saying, hey, you get this option. And I thought that's wonderful because people are wondering kind of how they look. And I remember doing a user testing session with someone, and a lot of people say slick when I say, what was the experience like recording your video? Oh, it's so slick. And I think that's a word people use when they're trying to say really smooth and polished. And there's some synonyms you could throw in there, but that's kind of the general sentiment is that. And I was talking to a user who had done an Ask for Hope who said, I wasn't planning on doing one. I was just going to check out the platform. And I asked, did you rewatch your video, your Ask for Hope? And he said, I rewatched it 6 times. But even just the playback, it could feel like such a small feature, but utilized in the right way, in the right product, for us, it is incredibly important to the safety of the experience for people and the sense of control they have over how their story or their, ask or message is shared.
So just overall, we were really happy to hear how many of the boxes that VideoAsk was ticking and that they were able to really tap into the various different features, be it the variables, the branding, those kind of privacy elements, the ability to be able to watch back your video before you submit it, So it was really cool to see that we were ticking all those boxes. So we're going to dive back into the conversation. Last few tips and tricks that John and Ariana have to share with us about how using VideoAsk has helped them to build Stigma App and get it out into the world nice and quickly.
The reasons I like VideoAsk for the product that John was able to build for us, and then kind of the ongoing ways that VideoAsk is helpful. And I bring this up because while we were on recording this conversation, we sent out an email to our members to offer them the ability to record messages of hope that will be video messages of hope, because we're creating this new feature where people can text the word hope to a phone number and at any time, anywhere in the world, get a message. And right now only in English, but get a video message of hope from a total stranger. And when we were thinking through how will this work and how will we capture, those videos, it was just so easy to go, oh, well, VideoAsk, because then we'll have it all in the right place. And I can't explain exactly how that works on the back end side of things. But this was an idea that I had on Tuesday. And I said, I want this out by Friday. I'm nicer than that to the team. I'm not, John can verify. I mean, I'm tough but fair. But I just felt like it could be something really powerful for a mass audience. And the fact that we can turn that on so quickly because of the way John has thoughtfully connected all of our back-end systems, but to be able to give people that consistent experience is part of building a brand. And so, like I said, my background is in brand. So when people watch a video for tips for how to ask for a message of hope, it's in the VideoAsk player. And when people record an offer of hope, it's in that VideoAsk player. And now when we ask people to create these messages that will go to others, it's in that same player. And so having that ability to utilize it for sort of different initiatives and different features, and feel like it's something new, like a new value that we're creating using the same tool, is also really helpful as, we're growing this low code solution that I'm very grateful for, because it'll be exciting to see how that feature works out. Early on when we first launched it, people said, I don't know what to say, or I wanted to try it out, but I'm not really sure I know the exact thing to say to someone who's asked for hope. And we were able to go in studio when we were doing a mental health pop-up, otherwise capturing people's stories, and bring a licensed clinical social worker on set who gave really great guidance and really great advice for how that can work. And then just drop it into the sort of user journey. And it became so easy. We could then say, now you can start your offer of hope by watching this person explain. You don't have to pretend to be a therapist or try to be one. It's just enough to, show that you were listening. And we get a ton of positive feedback on that one video that, if we had to rebuild the entire experience because we had forgotten a piece that needed to be in there for sort of optimizing what could come out of it, it would have taken a lot more time and cost a lot more money. So I do think that was just one kind of use case I failed to mention in terms of how flexible the tool was and the impact that it had on our users and the engagement in our environment.
Typeform's always done a good job of piecing out content or piecing out interaction. And I think the fact that that's carried through to VideoAsk is very empathetic to users, especially in this age of information overload where a little bit of context is great. And I think most UX designers are trying to solve this through little tool tips and things like that. But it's even better when it's really chunked out. And like Ariana said, giving some tips in an interaction flow, or even be able to say, okay, we're going to ask you for this information. This is why we're going to do it. Here's some context. And it's extraordinarily hard to do that with text and inputs in a form where you're like, okay, all right, now I'm going to give you my phone number. Why do you want my phone number? What is going on? And is it all through all these little hidden tool tips? So design's competing with UX in terms of trying to give them the information they need, but also not put fine print under every input where it's like, oh gosh, this looks like something serious. So it's been really great for that. And I think that is one of Typeform's superpowers, is being very empathetic to information overload. And like Ariana said, the extra benefit is being able to pop a video or a question in the middle of the flow well after it's live.
So hearing there how many different ways they are integrating VideoAsk into their flow is just really inspiring, really cool, and great to hear that they are kind of tapping into that ability to be able to quickly make changes to the flow, drop in a new step, switch something up as and when needed. So we're going to have one final message here from Ariana to finish us off.
I would not be a good startup founder if I didn't put this in there, a plug for us. Stigma App is free. It is a web application, and this I know is a big audience. So I would just say that if there's anything that we talked about from a like purpose standpoint about Stigma App that inspired you when you're watching this, please try it out. It's free to join. You can share what you want or not. We will, by the time probably this is shared, you will be able to just text to get a sort of general offer of hope as a video. I think it's kind of the sort of light way to get people into the experience and understand how it feels. But maybe more importantly than anyone who's watching this, trying it themselves, is if you know anyone who you think is struggling, let them know that, you know, this is a place that is a supplement to some of the many tools that people need to support themselves. It's not a crisis line, and it's not therapy, but it is proof that you're not alone. And so we're new and we can use all of the sort of new signups and promotion we can get. So I had to share that, but I promise it's worth the experience. And there's some great stories too on our Stigma Stories page. So even if you don't want to do the message of hope, you can watch stories of people and filter by conditions. And we would be very grateful. And we're grateful to be asked for the opportunity to share the story here.
And that's it. That's the end of our conversation. I want to say a massive thank you to Ariana and John for giving up their time to tell us all about Stigma App. I can thoroughly recommend going and having a look around, maybe even joining the community and offering a message of hope. So that's it for another VideoAsk Voyagers this week. Don't forget to join us over on the community, where you can check out our other episode of VideoAsk Voyagers, which is all about testimonial collection, or have a look at our Workspace Invaders series, or all the other inspirational content that we've got over there. If you would like to be part of an episode of VideoAsk Voyagers, please do feel free to get in touch. But for now, that's it from us, and I will see you again very soon.